Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you, coming at you with some cool tune gameplay. These games were actually played right before the WCQ event started, like the night before, so that's why we're on regular ranked ladder here. Our first opponent is going to be on a Blue Eyes deck. We're going to begin with Normal Summon Cool Tune Q, and they're going to chain Ash Blossom. Even though we opened Call By, I'm not going to respond with it here, because we also opened the Rotary. We can just save the Call By for a different hand trap or a graveyard effect on their turn. We're going to go Rotary plus Q in order to make the Track Maker. We're going to go Chainlink 1 Q, Chainlink 2 Rotary, Chainlink 3 Track Maker. I still like doing it this way. That way we are able to look at their hand and then, decide if we get to, give them their top card or not. Plus they already used Ash Blossom, so it's not like we have to worry about that. Okay, now here, obviously, this is a little bit daunting. We see not only Nibiru, but also Raigeki, and evenly matched as well. Call By is also not nothing here. If we try to go into like remix, obviously the Call By will just put a stop to that. So gotta be mindful of not only the Nibiru here, but also these board breaker cards and play around them as best we can. Nibiru Raigeki evenly called by. So I've summoned 3 times up to this point. We see Drill Beam and Blue Eyes Jet Dragon off of the the Q. That's how I knew they were on Blue Eyes. So I'm going to banish the Jet Dragon, because this could potentially summon itself, right? It just summons itself if a card gets destroyed. I'm going to leave the Drill Beam on top, because they don't have anything that makes it live. So Cool Tune Mix is going to be my 4th summon. We're going to activate the effect in order to add Rekko, but then I'm just going to set 2 and pass. I don't want to play into this Nibiru, and obviously, I know that they aren't going to have really any, live plays here. And in order to continue ensuring they don't have any live plays, I'm going to go Cool Tune Synchro in order to make the Zaylin. And then use Q effect to find Ash Blossom and Droll on top. I'm going to banish the Ash Blossom, keep their Droll on top. Now, they're going to go straight into battle phase for the Evenly. My thought process in making Zaylin was that if they activate either Raigeki or not Call By, what do you call it? Evenly, then I can just chain my own Call By, and then I'll get to use Zaylin's effect and negate it that way. Okay, so here's Evenly, as mentioned before, chaining Call By on their Ash Blossom, and then Zaylin will end up negating. Obviously, they still have the Raigeki, but this lets me keep the JJ Cool Tune, which will help me have follow-up plays. There's still that Nibiru to think about, though. Okay, yep, here's the Raigeki. Knew that was coming. Alright. Gonna set 1 card and pass. Now, leaving Droll on top of their deck was actually kind of a misplay, because it is a spellcaster, and they can link it off for the Spirit with Eyes of Blue. Totally forgot about that in the moment, but anyway, what I'm going to do here is Normal Summon Rekko, add Rotary, Rekko plus Rotary into Track Maker. Number 2. Now we're going to go Chainlink 1 Track Maker, Chainlink 2 Rotary, Chainlink 3 Rekko. Obviously I know the face down card is Call By, which they are going to end up chaining against the Rotary here. So no spell card search for me off that, but Track Maker can still search. Alright, there's that. So their 2 cards in hand are Nibiru and Drill Beam. Gonna use JJ Cool Tune to find a mix here. It's too bad, it's just too bad that Rekko already had to use the first effect, because obviously finding Clip would have been ideal, but yeah, Mix is summon number 4. Don't want to make Nibiru live, so I'm just going to battle, set this Cool Tune Synchro, pass back over to them. They find the Droll and Lockbird from before. They're going to normal summon it. Because at that point I realized, oh yeah, duh, Blue Eyes. So I'm going to Cool Tune Synchro, add Clip, but then I'm going to tune the Mix plus Rekko into RS. So now we're looking a lot better. Now we can just use Mix to pop the Droll. They can't go into their plays, and even if they had a live card in hand, RS would be able to negate it. More importantly, RS is a huge body summoned on their turn, giving me more opportunities to actually push and find lethal and still dodging that Nibiru that I know is in their hand. This was a perfect example of how the information is the most powerful aspect of Cool Tune, right? Being able to see exactly what your opponent's on and counter it as a result is a lot stronger than negates or pops, which of course Cool Tune has plenty of those as well. All right, now that I've shown you that game, let's go into the next one. Okay, for this game, we're going to be up against branded Artmage, which definitely makes sense, right? Obviously, branded can work pretty well with just about any fusion deck. Alright, here we've got the mix GG Cool Tune and Duelist Genesis. Definitely not bad. Gonna begin by activating the field spell so we can extra normal summon the mix. They're gonna fire off their Max C, but thankfully we've got the Ash Blossom to counter. Our Duelist Genesis is also live. This spell card, I never know how to feel about Duelist Genesis, because obviously you need to have a tuner in order for it to be live, which can be a bit tricky sometimes in certain, game states, but in scenarios like this, it's very good, obviously. Now here I'm going to go Q plus Rotary into the Track Maker. Once again, Q Chainlink 1, Rotary Chainlink 2, Track Maker Chainlink 3. That way we can look at their hand and then see the top card of their deck. Alright, what do we have here? Blazing Cartessia, Medius the Pure, Fallen of the White Dragon, and Artmage Varnish Alteration. So that's a pretty stacked hand. They're going to have a lot of different options going into their turn here. Gonna find a Cool Tune Synchro. Q sees Super Poly and one of the Artmage monsters. So I decided to banish the monster and put Super Poly on the bottom. Duelist Genesis finds Synchro Overtake, which we're going to use here, summoning out the Rekko. Now Rekko gets to activate. We're going to add the Clip. And then I'm going to go Mix plus Rekko into Remix. That way we have some more options going into their turn. Set the Imperm alongside the two Cool Tune Synchros and then pass. Alright, they're going to start with Fallen of the White Dragon's effect, sending Titaniclad. Now they're going to summon out Incredible Ecclesia from their deck. Incredible Ecclesia is going to activate here and summons out Fallen of Albaz. Now Fallen of Albaz is going to activate. I'm going to chain Imperm here as they discard the Cartessia. Obviously with two Synchro monsters in the play, I can't just chain Remix effect. Alright, here's Medius the Pure. Now I'm going to chain Remix effect because I want to pop this Power Patron pretty much as soon as it's summoned. And not only that, but we also get to make RS to negate it here as well. I really want to both destroy and negate this monster because it can not only fusion summon with its quick effect, but also if it's sent from the field or graveyard, for any reason. Sorry, from the hand or field to the graveyard, they can add an Artmage spell or trap card. So I think I actually ended up bouncing it with the, because I was like, wait, if I pop it, it'll just get the effect. So that's right, I'm going to bounce it with the what do you call it, Track Maker, that one. Making Zaylin in the process. Now we can go Track Maker to bounce. Q will help manipulate the top card of their deck. Not that it really matters here, but it could for, like, if the game goes on that long. Decided to banish Callby and just put their Medius on the bottom of the deck. Probably could just left Callby on top, but it doesn't really matter. They can revive Medius here, but it doesn't do anything. And my opponent, realizing that, is going to concede. Alright, let's check out the next replay. Alright, here's another game that's quite a high turn count, 5 turns against Branded. But I remember this game, and even though it's a high turn count, it's not necessarily the most back and forth game. As you can see here, I'm just going to end up opening with pretty much nothing as far as turn 1 plays goes. But at the very least, if you've got a hand like this where you don't have turn 1 plays, you got, at the very least, a lot of pretty good hand traps. Alright, they're going to summon out Incredible Ecclesia and then activate. I'm going to chain not only my Thulos, but of course also the Maxi. Just to maximize draws that we gain here. Alright, they're going to summon out Fallen of the White Dragon, giving me 2 draws, and they actually pass after that, which definitely makes a lot of sense, right? Because they know I have no plays because I didn't make any plays. So I think that if you know your opponent has no turn 1 plays and they then use Fua or Maxi, unless you know for sure you can find lethal through whatever hand traps they have, it's really smart to just pass and try to make sure they have no plays going into their next turn, which works. As you can see here, I've still got all hand traps plus called by, which is so brutal. Alright, they're going to draw for turn here. Switching Fallen of the White into attack mode and simply battling. Their hand must be really bad here as well. And there's a Rekko. So finally we can normal summon Rekko, activate. We're going to add a Rotary here. Then we're going to tune Rekko plus Rotary into the Track Maker. Now here, if it's just Rotary and Track Maker, then I go Chainlink 1 Rotary, Chainlink 2 Track Maker to chain block the Rotary here. They're going to summon out Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis, since there's a monster summoned for the extra deck, but no other Dogmatica cards they can't negate. Alright, Rotary reveals from their hand Albaz, Thrust, Branded in Red, Evenly, and Branded Retribution. Definitely makes sense why they passed. Actually, no, it doesn't. Unless they just drew Albaz, which they wouldn't have. They would have had this in their hand already, right? They should have normal summoned Fallen of Albaz and discarded to fuse with their own Fallen of the White Dragon. It's kind of counterintuitive, but think about it. They could send Branded Retribution here, go into Lubellion. Lubellion can just dump this like evenly, that doesn't do anything, and then they can actually make plays while still having Branded Red and Thrust alive. They definitely, yeah, because then Branded Red would have been live. They could have added back Albaz. So my opponent did actually have plays here. I just don't think they were the most intuitive. I mean, I'm not a branded expert or anything. I could be totally misevaluating that. But I'm going to extra normal summon my Veiler here. That way JJ Cool Tune pulls Mix out of the deck and we can add Q. Now I can activate Cool Tune Synchro. We're going to add a Rotary, which looks really weird, but what I want to do is Rotary extra normal summon Q. Now Q gets to activate summoning out Rekko from deck. Now we can do a Track Maker plus one of the Ghost Bells in hand in order to make the Zaylin. Now, Trackmaker is going to bounce the Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis, and now I'm going to go Q plus Zaylin and make the back-to-back. Q gets to look at their top cards of deck. Doesn't really matter at this point because I'm about to just win anyway. By going Mix plus Rekko, we can make RS, which will allow the Mix to pop the Fallen of the White Dragon. And now it also gives me way more than enough damage for lethal, because of course, remember, the back-to-back allows all of my tutors to attack twice per turn. So yeah, not the most back-and-forth game. I guess to be fair, even if my opponent had normal summoned like the Albaz and tried to activate, I would have had hand traps to stop it, but I do think their hand was more alive than they maybe thought it was there. Anyway, got one last replay to show you, and then we will finish off with and show you the deck list. And this final game is against yet another Blue Eyes deck. Kind of cool to see more Blue Eyes decks running around. It's a fun archetype. Anyway, what do we got here? We got Mix, we got JJ Cool Tune, and we have some additional tuners, so that should pretty much be all we need to get plays going here. We're going to activate JJ Cool Tune. They're going to use Frullo, so you got the Ash Blossom in response to that. Alright, that's going to resolve, and we're going to normal summon Mix here. Probably just grabbing Q, that way we can use our regular normal summon on that. Yep. They're going to Droll and Lockbird after we add the Q, which is totally fine here. We can just still go Q for Rekko. And then we're going to go Mix plus Rekko into the Remix. Now we'll set Imperm and pass right back over to them. Alright, going into their move, they're going to go for Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragon, summoning out Blue Eyes from the deck. And then passing right after that makes me very glad that I didn't, like, fire off the Remix in response to the Blue Eyes here. Although they're going to have Call By anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I guess it would have really mattered, I guess, anyway if I had done it earlier, but I definitely wanted to wait and see, like, what they did before committing to using Remix and, you know, trying to pop a card or something, but Call By is going to put a stop to that. Not that it really matters, because we do just have JJ Cool Tune anyway, and my opponent realizing that will just end up conceding. So yeah, even through Droll and Lockbird, we got some pretty solid plays, and it definitely does help when your opponent doesn't have anything. To be fair, we did still have Imperm and Veiler, so even if they had had a better hand, I think we still could have stopped pretty much anything they could throw at us, because Blue Eyes, as much as I like it as a deck, it's a lot weaker to these one-off negates like Veiler and Imperm than a lot of other meta decks right now. So anyway, there's the gameplay. Let me show you the deck list now, and we'll finish off. Okay, so here's my list for Cool Tune this season. I am playing Fallen and the Virtuous. It didn't really end up coming up during any of my games, but Because I just never drew it, and I'm thinking about it, it wasn't in any of those hands, but I do think it is really good in this deck, and it might seem kind of weird to play it in Cool Tune, but if you think about it, like, this deck has definitely played Super Poly a lot in the past, and any deck that has room for Super Poly's extra deck targets also has more than enough room for Fallen the Virtuous and its 2 extra deck targets, of course, those being Albion and Ecclesia the Dark Dragon. I mean, everything else is pretty standard here. One thing I was kind of thinking about experimenting with, and shout out to Patreon subscriber Mr. PLJ for this suggestion, is actually a second copy of JJ Cooltoon. It's not like he got it from seeing French nationals topping deck lists. It's not something that he necessarily invented on his own or claims to. He definitely, told me he got it from French national topping deck lists, but second JJ Cooltoon is a tech from the Wave 1 builds. Wave 1 Cooltoon would play the second copy a lot more often, and the idea is that it's kind of like Duelist Genesis in a way, where if you've got an extra tuner, it's more follow-up plays, and also having access to more normal summons is never a bad thing for this deck. And I gotta say, I'm actually a pretty big fan of the idea, right? Because if you open like Duelist Genesis plus the Veiler, you gotta use your normal summon on the Veiler, which is fine, right? Obviously, because then you can just special summon the Rekko off the Synchro Overtake, and then you can make plays that way. But if you can have that extra normal summon, that is so much better for this deck. There are so many games playing this deck. Well, not so many, but there's been enough games with this deck where I've lost because I'm like, if I just had one more normal summon, even having JJ Cooltoon or Rotary, if I had that like third normal summon, I would have been fine, but just some food for thought. Otherwise, I think Cooltoon, aside from minor techs like that, and whether or not you want to play Fallen the Virtuous and Super Poly or not. I wouldn't do both. But I think those are really the only deck building questions that are left for Cooltoon. Otherwise, I think Cooltoon is pretty much a solved deck at this point. Solved deck being a term for a deck that doesn't really have that much room to improve on as far as how you build it. Again, it really just comes down to off-engine tech, or I guess in-engine if you're considering the second field spell. In the future, Ghost Ogre starts to look a little bit better than Ghost Bell against stuff like Ritual of Light and Darkness for Mind Shuffle. But again, aside from swapping around your off-engine, Cooltoon's pretty much always going to look like this moving forward until they start hitting some of these cards in the ban list, which I do think should happen. This deck is very strong, and I think it is still just the best deck in the room. So I think it could use some limits here or there, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you as always for watching. Super appreciate the support. And yeah, watching all the way to the end is very, very, very supportive. I really do appreciate it. But that'll do it for now. Speaking of support, let's move on to our outro so we can thank our YouTube members and Patreon subscribers for their support. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.